Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I think somebody put up that square little structure to keep people from sitting with their back to Srila Prabhupada. Could you move to the side? Could you move over this way? Thank you. Your enthusiasm to sit in the front is noted. So the choice of the title for today's topic, why, you might wonder why. It connects the attention, there's several reasons. It's to connect with the first class and the second class, and this is the third class. And you see how it moves. There's another reason, and I already mentioned the other reason. You saw this face, Simon Sinek, and one of his main motivational talks is why goes at the center. Because we all want to improve. However, supposing somebody gives you this tool, that tool, or the other tool. Sachinandan Swami calls it the wheelbarrow. If you're not an outdoorsy person, you may not know what a wheelbarrow is. It has two handles, two legs down near the handle side and one wheel, and you put tools in you move the wheelbarrow to the place where you want to do your agriculture. A rake and a shovel and a this and a that, and the tools go in the wheelbarrow. So there are tools that can help, and they help. However, most of us have the experience, if not all of us, there's a lifespan of those tools. Like, in other words, enthusiasm for some time, the utsahan lasts for a little while, and then after a little while, something happens. That enthusiasm fades, and distraction as usual, or business as usual, resumes. Because those internal attachments and places of shelter are very strong, and they don't go away so easily. Therefore, the wheelbarrow, loading people up in a japa retreat with tools, it's nice for the duration of the japa retreat, or the duration of time that they remember that tool and apply the tool. And it may last for some time, and then it fades. Tendency. So therefore, the why is what's behind the what and the how. So if you have a clear sense of why, it helps to energize the what and the how. That's the reason for this choice. Here's another graphic that shows the same thing. And it's very similar to very similar to the topic of intention. You know, the three hearts, there's the 9 processes of the bhakti, there's Krishna is the object, and then there's the intention. At the heart of bhakti is the intention that Krishna should be pleased. So then one might ask the question, well, why? Why please Krishna, or why is it so important? And it has very much to do with who we really are. And if that sense of who we really are, in the bhakti sense, becomes awakened, it's, I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. I am meant, my existence is to be the servant of Krishna. Servant, yes. Servant of what? So that's the intention, that Krishna should be pleased, not just he's an object, but he's to be pleased. So that's how these topics connect with one another. Something that a presentation that I like maybe more than other presentations for university audiences is the who am I topic. And this is a who am I graphic. That fellow sitting there with his back to us, that's us. And that fellow sitting with his back to us is looking out at, on the one side is life and the other side is death, and the in between is what we make of it, life, what we choose to fill up that space. And a very essential dynamic with deciding what goes in that space is the question, the why question, or the who am I question. And supposing you don't get a quick answer, welcome to the club. Just today, because of curiosity, I was examining, I'm sure Socrates, because he had conviction about the soul. In fact, he was put to death because of his conviction in the soul. It was a heresy, the importance that he placed on it. And then the converse, the flip side, is one of his well-known statements is, a life without introspection is a life not worth living. If you don't know who you are, there was that position when it was clear in the courtroom that he was going to be convicted. So he had 3 choices, according to the biography about him. And he chose better to die. So one was to fight his case. Another was to stop teaching his teachings. Another was just accept the inevitable and take poison. It's better to die than to not live, ghost walking. So the why question is an important question. The who am I and why is it important? So the why bhakti question is it's easier to give the check the box answer. We know how to check the box answer. And then you just, like a parrot, you just say it. But it's not the same as our point before. It's not from the heart. So, but bhakti is from the heart. You say it because you mean it. And we're going to be touching on this topic. So here's the 9 stages of bhakti. We're all very familiar with these 9 stages of bhakti, beginning with faith and shraddha, and ending with prema. And then there's 7 steps in between, if bhakti is done properly. So, what is it about this creeper of bhakti and the goal of achieving prema and prema bhakti that attracts us? There are ways to avoid having philosophy, but you can't ask the why question and have no philosophy. Sorry, Charlie, it just doesn't work that way. So a little philosophy, just not too much. According to, we're going to Rupa Goswami's teaching, and we're also going to Jiva Goswami's teaching. And in both of their teachings, they make reference to the Taittiriya Upanishad, Rasovaisaha. Rasovaisaha. The absolute truth is rasa. And rasa, one simple definition or translation of the word rasa is taste, or juice, or flavor. So he, the absolute truth, by definition, is rasa. He's the reservoir of pleasure. And Krishna means the reservoir of pleasure. And one who has that contact with the reservoir of pleasure becomes filled with pleasure from contact with the reservoir of pleasure. It's very sensible. It is right in the Upanishads. And so we all have begun bhakti with, following Rupa Goswami, bhakti rasa amrita sindhu, the stages and practices and the do's and the don'ts and the recommendations under the teachings of Rupa Goswami and those that are following the teachings of Rupa Goswami. Here we are. And then sometimes there's slackening. The slackening is a word that Bhakti Vinod Thakur used often, reasonably often. That, it's the sine curve. Unsteady bhakti. Bhakti, but it's unsteady. And then we realize we're going down, and sometimes you get out the safety net, or you try to do a U-turn, and you try to make corrective measures. But with slackening, in Jiva Goswami's writings, he asks the why question. So why bhakti? And then why slackening in bhakti? If there's rasa, why slacken? And he offers a variety of explanations, but behind that variety, there's offense. No. Offense in chanting, we hear often, there's offense in bhakti. So there's lists of things to avoid because they're offensive. And, the list is quite similar, offense in bhakti, offense in chanting, because bhakti is a type of bhakti, or chanting is a type of bhakti, devotion to Krishna. In his teachings, Bhakti Sandarbha, he very helpfully gives us a list of 5 most prominent effects or byproducts of offense. And those byproducts of offense are what causes the slackening or diminishing. Bhakti Vinod Thakur uses this phrase slackening in submission. It's in relation to Sharanagati a lot. Sharanagati is one of his favorite phrases. He wrote some songs about it. He wrote writings about it. It's the stages. There's 6 stages and then subdivisions of those 6 stages of moving towards shelter, taking of Krishna. Because that's what Krishna wants. That's what he instructs in Bhagavad Gita. Mamekam sharanam. So sharanagati, going unto that place of sharanya, full shelter. And initially, one more time, then it's not, we've gone through it, we've seen it, it's not uncommon, so then why? Offense, a primary, they're secondary, and primary is offense. And then types and categories of the consequences of offense. And he starts with, there's 5, then he writes, you see the section of Bhakti Sandarbha, and you all should have received a PDF with Bhanu Swami's translation of these anucheds from Bhakti Sandarbha, so you can look at it later. But just a little quickie. The first of them is Kautilyam. And, same as what we said previously. A good definition is both inclusive and exclusive. Here's what inclusive is: crookedness. Instead of straight, it's crooked. So crookedness inside leads to crookedness outside. And so he, Jiva Goswami, gives as an example, classic example is Duryodhana. Because Duryodhana was crooked. Despite his crookedness, he wanted to gain Krishna's favor. As you know, the Mahabharata example, Krishna came all the way to Hastinapur to make a peace proposal. Of course, in the conclusion, the answer is no. But before he got to the answer is no, he did a crooked thing. It's nice. It's very nice. I mean, the Mahabharata history is very nice. So he made a grand arrangements in the celebration hall and gave a special seat and planned a big feast and, welcome to Hastinapur, oh cousin Krishna. Because he knew Krishna was partial to the Pandavas. And Krishna knew very well the skullduggery that Duryodhana had done to try to kill the Pandavas and kill Bhima and so forth. So, but his crookedness was such that Krishna was, he wanted to win him over. So he tried to win him over. And Krishna then declined to accept his offer for a feast, which may seem like discourteous. But Krishna said, there are 2 reasons why one might eat. 1, you're hungry. I'm not hungry. The second reason is love. Just like this little story, the Shrutakirti story. Because of Prabhupada's love for Shrutakirti. That was what he was saying. He didn't say, I love you, but he said, prepare udma for me, knowing that he's not a cook. And it was subtle, but it was clear to Shrutakirti. And anyone who hears the story, it's very clear. So it was an expression of love. So one may eat if there's love. And in this case, there's no love. Because your animosity to the Pandavas and Vaishnavas is very clear. There's no love. There's no love for me. There's no love for them. You offend them. There's no love for me. You offend them. So it was no thanks. I'll go where there's love. So he went to the house of Vidura, who was kind of like on the outs. He wasn't on the inner circle because of his birth. And you know the rest of the story. When he went, Vidura was not home. Vidura was out of town. So it was his wife. And she was so enthusiastic. But they're not wealthy. All she had was bananas. So she gave the banana peel instead of the banana. She was so excited. And Krishna ate the banana peel. And then she went, uh-oh. I gave him banana peels. Because of love. Patram pushpam. So the principle is the principle of love. But when it's crooked, they don't have love. And Jiva Goswami notes that often the offense of crookedness, which is a byproduct of another offense, is rooted in pride. So it's pride is the root. There's a few things that are particularly nasty and very dangerous. Pride is one of them. So crookedness arises from, crookedness is rooted in pride, often. Then he gives some, as he does, so I'm following, he gives an example from Vishnu Dharma. I like this one. Truth is destroyed by 100 obstacles, penance by 1,000. Human beings' devotion to Lord Govinda is destroyed by 10,000 obstacles if one is insincere. So then, not in this Anucheda, but elsewhere, he expresses what we were discussing, sincerity. The language of sincerity, different words can be used, but it's very much connected with the intention. And insincere, like Duryodhana, his intention wasn't to please. His intention was to get Krishna on his side, or not have Krishna against him, at least. So flattery, which was insincere, or was crooked. Is sincerity important? Absolutely, it's important. And it's the opposite or antidote to being crooked. That is, a sincere so there's a whole presentation on the topic of sincerity. I plan to speak on it when I visit another temple without going into the detail, but it's a characteristic of a devotee it's fundamental. It has everything to do with intention, that Krishna should be pleased. It is sincerely that Krishna should be pleased. And one who is pure is just wants Krishna to be pleased. It's very, very sincerely. That means sometimes one's sincerity is tested. Are you sure? Now this is a shorter class, so I'm going to tell some stories. The scene is the Henry Street Temple in Brooklyn. Srila Prabhupada is visiting during a hot summer day, July 1971 or 72, and the Vyasasana is way up here, and I was sitting way down here, right in front, looking up. And Prabhupada was covering a topic, saying, the message from Krishna is, take shelter of me, quoting the Bhagavad Gita verse. And then when you say that to Krishna, Krishna may want to know, is he sincere? Does he really mean it? I'm paraphrasing. And then Prabhupada gave two options. Krishna may say, what about a little trouble, And the devotee says to Krishna, whatever you want to do with me, I simply want your shelter. Please keep me engaged in your devotional service, whatever difficulty may come. Oh. Then what about a little sense gratification? His voice went up. And the devotee, he made a motion with his arm like this. No. So I don't want sense gratification. Please just give me shelter of your lotus feet. You can do with me whatever you like. My one request is please give me your shelter and your devotional service. Then Krishna may say, oh, he really wants me. Then let me give myself to him. So the example was Krishna may test our sincerity. And it happens. Sometimes. The sincerity, the intention that Krishna is singularly, Krishna is to be pleased, and there's nothing else. That's my one shelter, there's no other shelters. That gets tested by circumstance. It may be, particularly for a devotee, may be sent by Krishna purposefully to examine their intention. So there's a whole etymology of the English word sincere and what is it derived from, and skire, and there's a whole thing on what sincere means. But in our terms for this presentation or our discussion, is that Krishna should be pleased. And 10,000 obstacles, if one is insincere, that Krishna should be pleased. Lots and lots and lots and lots of other things to keep us really, 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 really busy and just forgetful. And this crookedness is pretending or dishonest, presenting oneself in a dishonest way to oneself and to others, both. And beyond that one, or more subtle than that one, is a lack of faith, or one might say this crookedness has an element of lack of faith, ashraddha, specifically in the Shastras. So one of the antidotes is to hear regularly with faith, or in the association of those who are faithful, so that quality becomes our quality. Faith in the name, faith in the scripture, faith in his devotees. And then hold the scriptural references to indicate this particular. So this faithlessness is a byproduct of offense, and it's like a cloud in the sky that comes from water evaporation. It blocks the light of the sun, the cloud in the sky. So the sun is still shining, but I can't experience the fullness of the bright sun. Offense. Then Bhagavan Nishtha Chavaka. Loss of focus on Bhagavan. That means I'm focused on other things. The distraction program. So tomorrow morning we're going to be examined. These are nice teachings, and how strongly are we fixed in living according to what those teachings are? And sporadically for some period of time. Here's a little experiment. Because of our circumstances, we're not going to do this. But one of the things that happens at Japa retreats, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes. We invite the devotees to sit in pairs. One person is chanting and the other person is listening for like one round, like 10, maybe 10 minutes. And then the person who's listening critiques the person who is chanting. And you learn a lot about the sound vibration of others chanting. And then one of the things that it comes out is you can hear when they're being attentive and when they're being inattentive. And then switch. You don't do it in big crowd because it's too embarrassing, but you have a friend and someone confidential, you sit and have them hear your chanting. So the other things that are shelter for us, or service or duty or something or problems, or much of our time in life is problem solving. The mind goes to a problem. It may go to some good fortune, but often it goes to some problem. And problem solving. So the intelligence is engaged over here with the mind who's meditating on some problem. While the mouth is going, but the ear isn't hearing, because the mind is way over there. And then, I got way over there. So you bring the mind back, and then for a few mantras, it's more attentive, and then more of the same. And that's life, commonly. So this is obsessive absorption in things that are detrimental. Bhagavan nishtha chavaka, loss of focus. And then supposing one becomes a little bit more focused, but a little bit lazy, that here's the Utsahan topic. Look at this. Rupa Goswami got it right in the very beginning, Utsahan. So the lack of Utsahan, lack of effort in sadhana, laziness in practice, bhakti, saitilya. It's similar to slackening, but it's not exactly the same. And then the fifth. This is the Sanskrit, a little bit longer. Sva bhaktyadi krita manitvam. Manitvam. Tvam is having the quality of mana, pride. Swa bhaktyadi krita manitvam. Pride in one's bhakti. So pride, it's pernicious, it's very nasty, it destroys good things. Like seeing what you have. So we're chanting. My plan is, at the end of this class, we're going to take about 10 minutes and listening to Prabhupada chanting Japa. And we're going to invite you to chant Japa. So you can examine yourself each of these 5 things. And one of the principal means of countering these 5 byproducts of offense is the intention to restore rasa, our relationship with Krishna and the taste of our relationship with Krishna. Sankalpa. There's a nice description, some of you know already, from Tattva Sandarbha. I'm a Jiva Goswami fan, so pardon me. Tattva Sandarbha is the first of the 6 Sandarbhas. And before he does this Tattva Sandarbha, he does a section he calls Pramana Kanda, the section of evidence. I want to talk about Krishna. But before we talk about Krishna, we should talk about what are the means to know Krishna. Pramana. What's the means or the evidence or verification of I've actually got the topic of Krishna straight. So then he goes through different ways that people can know something, and comes to the conclusion the best way of knowing something is through Shabda. And then Aparushaya Shabda, a transcendental source, infallible source, Aparushaya Shabda. And he identifies the Vedas. Then what are the Vedas? It's like very comprehensive. And then the Vedas is 1. And then Vyas came along and divided the Vedas into 4. And he identifies the names of the persons who he entrusted the 4 Vedas to. And what was his reason? His reason was it's Kali Yuga. And in Kali Yuga, people don't have even Brahmanas don't have the same qualification of previous yugas. And he uses this nice metaphor of a treasure chest with jewels. And supposing you're a Vedic time person, you go to a Vedic Brahmana, and you say, I have a desire, you state your Sankalpa. Something. I like victory over my enemy, or I'd like a qualified son, or I'd like to have a good education, or I would like wealth, or I'd like a kingdom, or you state your Sankalpa. And then the Brahmanas could reach into this treasure chest of jewels and take the right mantras to match your Sankalpa and perform a yajna. And with the mantras and the ghee and the offerings into the fire, then voila. That which is desired can be facilitated by Vedic process. That's karma kanda activity. And so that's what a major part of the Vedas is the karma kanda section of the Vedas, performing yajnas to match one's sankalpa to achieve X, Y, or Z. And a classic example of that was the son of Maharaj Parikshit, after his father was killed by the bite of a snake bird. He then, being the emperor, he had the brahmanas perform a yajna that would kill all the snakes in the world. So the snakes in the world are falling into the yajna. And he had to be stopped. You can't kill all the snakes. These are God's creatures. One doesn't equal everyone. So the yajna stopped. But it works. If the brahmanas qualify. So same, sankalpa works in relation to the chanting of the holy name. Now, not in the same way, but I'm going to invite everyone here and the online people to undergo a sankalpa contemplation. This is the why question. Tomorrow, and then the day after tomorrow, and the day after that tomorrow. What's your sankalpa? What's your intention? Same question. Why are you here? Why did we come to this Japa retreat? And there's an expectation, some intention. What's that intention? I thought it'd be nice to share. This is the heart of George Harrison in My Sweet Lord. In one of his songs, this is his sankalpa. I really want to know you. I really want to see you. And of course, the woo, woo, woo part is there. I really want to be with you. That's George Harrison's sankalpa. And then, other ways of musically presenting his heart. And then celebrating someone heard, Krishna heard, here comes the sun indicating his relationship with Krishna and the reciprocation that he received. And that was his life. It was Japa, but that was his life. So what's yours? Yours doesn't have to be George Harrison, doesn't have to be mine, doesn't have to be anybody else's. It's yours, it's personal. What's your sankalpa? So I'm inviting you all for the next 3 to 5 minutes. Everyone has a phone, or 2 or 3. And actually, physically, write it down. Everybody knows how to write things. Or your notebook, that's good too. It's even better. Depends what generation you are in, if it's better. And a written sankalpa that it's gonna be with you and as soon as I finish this, and it's going to be with you tomorrow, and then maybe beyond tomorrow. Depends on how deeply thought. So this is maybe a little bit of a surprise gesture. And at the end, I'm not going to ask you to volunteer unless you want to volunteer what your Sankalpa is, but I'm going to share with you what mine is. Okay. This is supposed to, the intention is for you to be clear tomorrow morning, and as soon as we finish this for the next 10 minutes, and we may have some more rounds to chant later today, that's fine too. Help you focus. It works. I don't know where it is. There's a graphic that shows, I'm going to go back. A graphic that shows in Naperville, we had last 2 times, we had the same presentation as we're doing here in Naperville called Festival of the Holy Name. And there was more time, so I described to the audience, and it made a particular point because there's a lot of youngsters that come around. So I was describing how Sankalpa works. Sankalpa works something like a magnifying glass. I can't remember the context. Maybe it was just a little session with the kids or something like that. Maybe that's what it was. See, I did this as a kid, and I asked them if they had done it, and some kind of like No, but so try it. Here's a magnifying glass, there's the sun. And if you tilt the magnifying glass at a certain angle and capture the light of the sun and hold that magnifying glass in such a position that the heat and light of the sun focuses on one point, you can burn the hole in the paper. You can spell your name. You don't have to have a steady hand. Don't, try it on your arm. You'll burn your arm because the sun is fire. And you can concentrate that fire by the magnifying glass. So the next day, 15 sheets of paper with how they burned some paper, trying experimenting with a magnifying glass. It works. Similarly, Sankalpa works. It takes, the Shakti, Nija Sarva Shaktis, invested in the potency, invested within the holy name, and brings it to a point of focus. Nice? It works. So, keep it not just, in your phone, keep it in your inside, and when you do your chanting. So this was sent to me from the Govardhan retreat this year, and the person who sent it to me said this is a little photograph, an image that Satchidananda Swami keeps by his side when he's chanting Japa. So it's a nice Sankalpa. So this is going to be my Sankalpa. It's very simple. Just be present. Be present with the holy name. And it's good. It's a very effective. It's not too high. It's not too low. It's be present. Try it. Be present with the holy name when you're chanting. Knowing that Krishna's hearing your chanting and he's with you while you're there chanting. It's a relationship. It's very nice. Okay. So here's the final slide. This is a nice painting, and it's meant to represent the 26 Second Avenue storefront. Down in the lower left, that's the little sign that says what goes on inside the storefront. And then in the window of the storefront is the Panchatattva painting, very simple, rudimentary Panchatattva painting. And there's Srila Prabhupada coming and going. So there's a recording. Look in the upper left corner of this slide and you'll see a little horn. It means there's an embedded soundtrack. The embedded soundtrack is Prabhupada chanting. The history behind this particular recording, I found out later from Nayana Baram, because at one point, before there was 26 Second Avenue, there was 61 across the street and up a little bit, Second Avenue, a walk-up situation. And devotees were sitting, chanting Japa with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was chanting with them. And the devotee, you'll hear Prabhupada say audibly, sit properly, like command. And Nayana Brahm giggled and said, that was me. I was slumping against the altar like a sack of potatoes. And I was chanting, and Prabhupada didn't like how I was sitting like a sack of potatoes, so he said, sit properly, commanding tone. So that's the little history. So 61 Second Avenue, Prabhupada chanting Japa with the devotees. Get your bead bag, if hopefully it's nearby, and we'll chant roughly one round. And, you'll notice Prabhupada chants swiftly. That you may initially try to chant this as swiftly as Prabhupada chants, and you'll find you'll be left in the dust. So don't worry about keeping the same cadence as Prabhupada. just chant with Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram. Sit properly. Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, 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 Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Ram Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Krishna, 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 Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Ram 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 Hare Krishna, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram Ram Hare Krishna, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Ram
discussion. We have about half an hour if you want to use that much time.
Hare Krishna, I just had a comment. Like I'm pretty new to this, so like I've never chanted with this many people at the same time, and it was like it felt like being in a beehive. Like you can feel like the vibrations and like you
Yeah.
hear the humming, and I don't know. I think that's pretty good, honey. Thanks.
Chanting with Prabhupada and, and all of us too. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share or ask or explore?
Maharaj, somebody asked during my session about why some people leave along the process, especially, they've been practicing for a significant amount of time and then they still exit the practice of Krishna consciousness. One of my thoughts was also going to, the seed of bhakti that was discussed, matihi, that desire to please Krishna that you're discussing this morning. That's the seed of bhakti.
Yeah.
That seed is of pure devotion, it's selfless, that matures over time. Just as different seeds produce different trees, could the seed be mixed devotion that also leads to a devotee, if the expectation is not met, they transition out?
Well, yes and no. Meaning, the seed that's given is not the seed of mixed devotion. However, within the heart, there's some existing seeds before the seed of devotion is given, and those seeds, by maturing, may become weeds, and the weeds may overcome the seed of devotion and choke it, and take the water and the nourishment and the this and the that, because of some other, use that metaphor, other seed, a seed of something. And there can be, so it's not that the seed is necessarily, it may be, but it depends on from whom one received that seed. But it's not that the seed is mixed devotion seed. But within the heart, there's mixed of other things. That the metaphor of weeds is something that our acharyas also discuss. And the weeds can choke the desirable creeper. So one has to be vigilant and do some weed pulling. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. As part of chanting, like we are doing tomorrow, the 64 rounds. Now, as part of the Sankalpa, now we do at times experience bliss or peace, but we get attached to the experience. So getting attached to a certain experience also can be, like, rather than the prayer is,
yes,
Krishna, you be pleased, but
yeah,
I may be a bit more enjoying the experience. And just,
yeah.
So
there's a phrase that in the devotee circles, along with the buzzing of bees in a beehive metaphor, experience, is passing through patches or stretches in extended chanting where it's like a desert. And it can be external or internal. It could be, a mercy of Krishna. So, oh yeah, you want a taste? What about if it's no taste? So it can be, purposeful, or can just be circumstantial. So your question is this topic is a little bit following his question. Like when people have a spell that's just too much, they can't bear it because they want the positive and then they're not getting the positive. So they desist. But this has everything to do with the offenses, like this one not having faith. One who has faith, they'll continue. And a faithless, conditional faith person depends on the experience. Okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Also, thank you for all your presentations. It's always super awesome when you come to Houston.
When I saw you in the audience, I was like, yay. Because you're a good person to have an audience speaker relationship with. You're always like that. That's a compliment.
Thank you. Okay, so I have two questions. The first is following Prabhu's comment. So my understanding is that Krishna consciousness is dormant in every living being.
Yeah.
Pure love for Krishna is dormant in all of us. So how do we understand that we receive the seed? Isn't it that the seed is already within everyone?
That's a nice question. Guess what? Our acharyas have answered that one. And we can think of the seed as like, a physical thing. There's my hand, and there's a thing in my hand called the seed, and the seed is put in the heart. But as you say, it's already there. So that's not the kind of seed. It's a metaphor that has its limits, and it means an attraction for the topics. Name, form, qualities, pastimes, topics, the sound vibration, vachaka, the sound vibration. The awakening of that sound vibration is the gift of the seed.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, my second question is related to chanting in Tosi Maharani. So I understand, like Haridas Thakur, he always chanted in front of Tosi Maharani. I was wondering if you can give some comments about the power of chanting and the importance of chanting with Tosi Maharani.
Well, thank you. You all has nice questions. So, there are personalities in Krishna's entourage, Tulsi being one of them, or Vrinda Devi being one of them, that they are given the empowerment to give Krishna Bhakti. There are others, but she's one. So she has the power to give Krishna Bhakti. He was poor, so he didn't have a deity and didn't have lots of things. But Tulsi, and then the watering of Tulsi is, so that was a principal means for him to receive Bhakti from Vrinda Devi or Tulsi Devi. And it's not fiction, it's fact. And there are other sources as well. You want to pursue it further? You've got this funny look on your face.
Okay, like you mentioned,
She's carrying a Shakti, Bhakti Shakti. She can bestow it.
right. And so we're following in the line of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he gives this love for Krishna in a certain mood, in the mood of separation, like in Radharani's mood. Is there a difference between how he bestows bhakti and the bhakti that we get from Tosi Maharani?
You're way up there in the spiritual atmosphere. Let me ask you a question. What is it going to make any difference to you? If it's this or that? I'm not being confrontational, I'm being practical. So curiosity is fine, but most important, it's a message. Most important is let your curiosity go to something that you can apply in your devotional life and go forward with it. No, Lord Chaitanya gives everything. And Vrinda Devi is not Lord Chaitanya. He's the Shaktiman and she's the Shakti. So she gives Bhakti Shakti. So Lord Chaitanya gives Prema Bhakti. And not only that in the mood of the gopis, that's his mood, but there are followers of Lord Chaitanya that derived their inspiration from him, and they were not in the mood of the gopis in separation. He displayed it, he gestured towards it and displayed it, and he gave it. But he gave everything because he's the personality of Godhead. And that's unique. It's not the same as Tulsi Devi. She's not Shaktiman. She's one of his Shaktis. You have something?
Thank you, Maharaj. It's really very. This is the first time I'm attending the Japa retreat. It's really a lot of things is coming up in my mind. A quick question on this: during Japa retreat, if I understand correctly, we can focus on what we want to be. In that case, if I have multiple wishes, I want to be a more lovely person, more happier, and more helpful. How do we?
That's up to
visualize?
you. Your Sankalpa is your Sankalpa. You're looking for me to script your Sankalpa. And I can script it, but there's something inside your heart. You have to discover that. And and again, this point of be practical, not something that's, something that's practical.
Got it.
So that's my answer to your question.
Got it.
It's fine. These other things that you mentioned, and then some further things and some further things. But let it be genuine, not crooked, but let it be genuine, sincere, and something that's I can invest myself in tomorrow and the next day and the next day that's within my grasp.
Yeah.
And then after so many tomorrows, there may be a deeper or a further or a modification of, and that's fine. Okay?
Got it. Thank you, Ji.
Okay.
So, thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. I have two questions, one related to today's topics and the other one is from yesterday, if that's okay.
Sure.
One regarding today's classes. When I chant, so this is about distraction, material distractions, temporary, and then you have a spiritual feelings. So when I chant, one thing that almost always happens is I'm feeling very fortunate when I'm chanting, feeling
Nice.
very, very fortunate. So when that happens, that keeps me on track, careful chanting. And the other thing that happens is variety of different feelings come from being fortunate. How Krishna deals with his devotees, what kind of amazing thing he does for his devotees, so on and so forth. So
But one thing I'm very careful about is I don't lose track of my chanting, just getting absorbed in those feelings, but, losing track of the chanting. So these things are going on parallel, my chanting and then this kind of feeling. So my question is, I don't consider this,
You don't what?
I do not consider this as distraction. Is that the right feeling?
Yes. With the preamble that I don't get lost in that stuff.
Yeah.
It's stimulations of the essence, the good fortune that's come. Next.
The other question I have is from yesterday when we were discussing these 3 items. So this question has been with me for some time, came out yesterday, but we didn't have time. So Srila Prabhupada, before he came to US, Srila Rupa Goswami appeared to him, that he gave him the permission to go and or the indication to go, and you will be successful. That's one. And other, while Prabhupada was on his way to US, Krishna appeared to him and he also gave him assurance.
Yes.
And so when Prabhupada came here, the first year was very, very tough, extremely tough. So then I think I've read also, and I've heard in many lectures that Prabhupada would sometimes go to the harbor to see when the next ship was leaving for India.
Yeah.
So this was a curious question. Now, Srila Prabhupada has assurance of Srila Rupa Goswami, blessings of his guru, and assurance from Lord Krishna. So how to understand this when Srila Prabhupada is going to the harbor to see when next ship is going back to India?
No problem. What does Krishna want? In there may be a modification, be successful in which way, in which place, in which circumstance. And he's not doubting what happened, the blessing, the reassurance, but maybe that reassurance dynamic. And there were so many things that happened in the course of his life. There's adjustments and refinements and realignments, and what he started with was not what he ended up with, and then many in between phases. Now some things he targeted and went after, like the Juhu land. And the obstacles, and he was undaunted by the obstacles. So he is a person that had a way of carrying out the will of his spiritual master and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And that was just part of it. Maybe they want, because I'm the instrument, I'm here as their instrument. So maybe they want. It wasn't cold feet. It wasn't faithlessness. It's refinement, seeking for Krishna's indication. What does he want? I'm a peon. I want to be his messenger, like that.
Guru Maharaj.
Over here.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for this. Lot of contemplations and churning going on. From the last evening class, this patience, and I was trying to contemplate on that and then trying to apply that in my japa today. So when you were just mentioning to the other question, it could be offenses that we may feel dry in our japa, or sometimes it could be Krishna's way to, not quote unquote reciprocating, but being absent and thus trying to pull our hearts more towards Him. So I was thinking in that space, okay, I can just be, yeah, fine, whatever Krishna wants, I'll just continue. But I'm trying to see how can I be enthusiastic, because sometimes it can go to apathy, or sometimes it's like, okay, whatever, I'll just continue my japa.
Well, apathy, your question is a little confusing to me because there's an assumption, underlying assumption from the, knowing you and and your question. There's some. It's a question of direction of enthusiasm, not a question of apathy. The utsahan direction towards what? And if Krishna is not reciprocating in a way that seems like a natural kind of reciprocation, then am I doing something wrong? Do I need to adjust how I'm doing what I'm doing? But not apathy. Just, again, this question, realignment. What does Krishna want of me? What will make him happy? What does he want? So an adjustment of how I'm applying myself towards what Krishna wants is the way forward. And supposing you don't know, so then you stay with that uncertainty until some indication comes, and then you want to evaluate, is this really what Krishna wants, and so forth. But enthusiasm stays intact. And so then, and how does that? It goes back to the why. What's the purpose? Like many cases, Prabhupada would encourage the devotees to do X without attachment to the result. And if there isn't a result, it's not that you failed. That the success is that you've endeavored to try to please Krishna. That's the success. And do the best you can. And the result is whatever the result is. But you do the best you can without attachment to the result. That's the art of work, a way of saying, or it's bhakti. That Krishna should be pleased. And then one can feel different emotions. I'm not so qualified to be even in this position to striving, but here I am. Because where else to go? There's no place else to go. What to do? What can be done? Prabhupada's phrase. Okay. I think we should end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Take rest early, get up early, chant early. 64 rounds is a mountain. But you all can do it. And then some.
Hare Krishna.